Welcome to Home Remodeler Toolbox, the podcast dedicated to empowering remodelers and builders to build and grow successful businesses. Join your host, Bob Vance, founder of Home Remodeler SEO, as he brings you industry insights and strategies that will help you build a thriving business, no matter what level you're at in your business. Whether you're a thriving multi-million-dollar business or you're working on building your business from the foundation up, this podcast is your go-to source for industry secrets and actionable strategies that you can implement in your business to get to that next level. So, turn on, tune in, and let's help you build your business foundation one building block at a time.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Home Remodeler Toolbox Podcast today. I'm Bob Vance, your founder and host of the podcast channel, the channel for remodelers, builders, and contractors to come and be educated and empowered. Today, I've got a really special guest on with us, Chris Lalomia, the owner of the Trusted Toolbox in the Atlanta, Georgia area. Chris is not only a businessman, entrepreneur, philanthropist, author, speaker, but really an all-around good guy. So really excited to have you on the show today, Chris.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Yeah, definitely. I know I've enjoyed it so far.
Awesome. Great. Well, I'm glad to have you on the show. We're looking forward to picking your brain for some insights, maybe some things that other remodelers, builders can take away and implement in their company. First, Chris, just kind of tell us, about your company, what you guys specialize in, where you're located, and the areas you serve.
The Trusted Toolbox is located in the Metro Atlanta area. I've been at it for 16 years. I have 15 handymen that do handyman work around the Metro Atlanta area here. And then I also have 4 remodelers who do the remodeling division with my remodeling manager. And then we have a branch in Athens, Georgia, where we started out there. We're smaller out there. There's only 3 of us, but we're trying to grow that one as well. But we run around and do all the small things around the house, all the way up to the big things in terms of remodeling.
Okay, great. I know that you had some impeccable timing when you decided to start your company. Tell me about the start that you got in the industry and kind of what really brought you to want to build your own company.
So when I was 17, I said I wanted to start my own business. And then I went off, of course, and did exactly not that. I went and got my bachelor's degree, then my master's degree in mechanical engineering, and then went into manufacturing. Then I got into consulting, and believe it or not, I was in banking. So I've always wanted to start my own business. I started looking into it in 2006 at the end, and really was looking at it for a year in 2007. Then I said, you know what? I've got a lot of counsel, a lot of mentors, and they said, if you don't jump, you won't do it. So I jumped in April of 2008, not knowing that I was jumping right into the biggest recession we've had in modern times. So timing is definitely not my thing.
But it worked out. Tell me how you got through that recession and we're still able to keep growing your business and moving forward.
Yeah, it was tough. I joked that I tell everybody, you should start it on a downturn in the economy because you definitely have to be lean and mean and work hard. Of course, lean and mean and working hard still meant I was losing money when I first got started, but I kept staying after it, developed my systems and my processes, not in that order, of course. And we're able to keep growing by having a good brand, but also doing some good marketing work, and then starting to really build our repeat base. And then here I am. That's why I tell people, I said, just 15 years later, I'm an overnight success. That's all it says.
Exactly. 15 years of overnight success. That's great. What do you think is one of the things that's really contributed to your success over the years, or a few things? How you stayed lean and mean and really had to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and really work at it, and now you're that overnight success. What are some of the few things that really stand out to you that got you here?
Yeah, I think number one, every day you wake up, you want to be a problem solver. The entrepreneurial spirit, I think, starts with grit, but also you're a problem solver. Every day you're solving a problem. You've got to have the hustle to be able to do it, but problem solving starts it. I also found something out about myself that I always would have said I was a pessimistic guy before I started. And I found out that I was a lot more optimistic, and stayed with this even through the lean times And then even after the business really started to grow, I can't tell you that it was always roses. It has continued to be a struggle. And the trajectory is never just a 45-degree right up the mountain. You're up and down and stumbling, bumbling, getting knocked back down, getting back up. So, just staying after it with the grit and the problem solving, but being optimistic about it, it really kept me going.
That stick-to-itness quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, stick-to-itiveness, absolutely. Never
It's funny. You say that you always thought of yourself as a pessimistic guy. I've known you for a while now, and I would never have put pessimistic and your name in the same sentence. I mean, when I talk to you, I look to you. You've always got a smile on your face. You're positive. You really exude a lot of positive energy and affect people around you. So for you to say you're pessimistic, that kind of really jumps out at me as what did I just hear?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, that's, I think your personality obviously changes quite a bit when you start your own business. And, I'm part of a CEO mastermind group, and we talk about this quite a bit. The hardest thing to do is start your own business. It's easier, arguably, to be the CEO of Coca-Cola than it is to start your own business and start something from zero and get it up to where you have. And I know you've got some clients that you've taken from zero to, millions of dollars in sales, and it's hard. It's a slog, but you're right. That's why I learned about myself, and you got to stay positive and stay up there. And yeah, I have bad days, and yeah, I have some really bad thoughts, and it's really bad. And the good news is that I'm able to get back up the next day and keep going after it.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people this is the hardest thing I've ever done is starting a business. And, I've done some hard things in my life, and I've done some Ironmans and things like that just seem like, oh my God, like why am I training so hard? Why am I going to go run and ride a bike for 12 hours and things like that? And I mean, that to me, that's just child's play, thinking about some of the things that I've accomplished in my life compared to starting a business and just the ups and downs and dealing with clients and, HR, our favorite for all of us, I'm sure. You like you said, you have some downs, some valleys that you hit, and you just got to realize, hey, tomorrow's going to be a new day, and I'm going to wake up with a new attitude, and we're going to wake up and solve that problem that we didn't get solved the day before. So I like that perspective from you on that.
Yeah. You mentioned that. I didn't know that about you doing the Ironman, but it is amazing to me how many people I have met in this journey of entrepreneurship that have actually been like you. They've run marathons, they've done the Ironman, and it's a testament to what's inside of you. That's why you can start your own business, is that stick-to-itiveness that you've mentioned, the grit, the determination, I'm going to have to get up, and maybe it's cold and snowing today, but I still got to go get my run in, or I've got to get my bike in, or I've got to jump in the pool and start swimming, whatever that's the same thing we bring to the business every day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all mental. I was told before I started training for one of those things that it's 90% mental. Your body wants to quit before your mind does. And so the same thing in business, you're going to have those negative thoughts, but you have to push through that and say, hey, it's a moment in time. Maybe it's a day in time, but tomorrow is going to be another day. You're going to be able to push through that. And I think it's just that mentality. You just have to have that. And that's why entrepreneurs typically are a different breed of people, because you just don't let those things take you down for too long. Maybe a minute, maybe a day, whatever it might be. But you just know that people are counting on you. People are counting on you to keep, moving your company forward and growing the company so that they can keep feeding their families as well as growing their own careers and having success in their own lives.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I think Simon Sinek is famous for the why. Why did you start your business? What's your business why? What's your personal why? My why has changed over the years, and now it's about doing exactly what you just said. I've got 38 employees and trying to make sure that we got a place for them to show up and do great things and do what they can do best and provide for their own families. So that's 38 families that we're impacting, and that's the impact has really started to really change my why, which is one of the reasons I volunteered and got so involved with NARI, the National Association of the Remodeling Industry, just to try to give back and share some of my knowledge, but also see if I can't help.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me a little bit more about that. The National Association of the Remodeling Industry, NARI. I'm an industry partner as well. You're the president of the Atlanta chapter. We're both on the marketing committee together. Fantastic organization, fantastic people. Tell me more about why you joined the organization and how it helps you in your business.
I originally joined because they have a great once a month networking meeting after hours where they had beer and wine available. So I did that. But what I quickly learned was that it wasn't about getting referrals. It wasn't about making the connections to get jobs. It was about learning from guys who are doing this business at a different phase than you are. And we're doing it way better than I was, especially in the remodeling area. The connections that I've made here in Atlanta and nationally now as part of NARI have been great. There's organizations in most of the major metro cities, and we're growing as well. So it's been great to develop those relationships, but also learn from a lot of people who are doing remodeling a lot different than I do it, design build, or maybe they're just doing exterior remodels, or maybe they're just doing interior remodels, or they're only doing home additions. But you learn how they structure and how they go work on their business, and it's really been a benefit for me.
Yeah, it's everyone's at a different phase in their business, whether they're just starting up and doing their first couple jobs through referrals, or whether they're, guys that have been at it for 20, 30 years, maybe making millions of dollars. Other guys that had been at it for 20 or 30 years, but they don't really have those revenue goals and they're just happy where they're at. So, if you were able to kind of go back in time, what would you do differently about starting your business that might help others think about, how they kind of navigate their first couple years, those tough, challenging years, starting their own business?
Absolutely. So number one, cash is king. You know that. You've got to get deposits. You can't fund your customers' jobs. You've got to take in more than you charge. I'm sorry, you need to take in more than you cost, or you're going to go out of business very quickly, because you should know your numbers, and it's hard to do that. So that's one. The second thing is I would have told myself, go out there and talk to people who are in my business more. They'll probably share with you. And frankly, they will. And I've shared, and I was afraid to do it, and I shouldn't have been. I was asking people outside of the industry, what I should be doing. And I asked a lot of different people in things not home service related. Got some great advice, but I should have just gone and got into that NARI group and started asking people, hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I've had people open up their shops to me and share their operations manuals. And we've shared all kinds of things. And I've done the same with others as well. So that's been great.
Yeah, we've talked about that on another conversation we had about the really the theory of abundance. There's so much abundance in the world that no one has to hog it all for themselves. So whether you're talking about opening your operation and your manuals to someone else, or them doing it for you, I do the same thing. I've got some buddies that own their own marketing agencies, some in the same serving the same industry as me in remodeling, others that do maybe roofing or work with attorneys or whatever. But we all just feel that same thing that you're talking about, Chris, is there's so much abundance in the world. We can't all have all the customers. So, just find your little slice of the pie and then help others and that kind of pay it forward attitude. And everyone seems to win from that.
I agree. Yeah, there's plenty to go around. There are a lot of bad actors out there. There are plenty of home remodels available to you. There's plenty of handyman work available to all of us, especially in the U.S. economy and the U.S. Mindset now is really more from a customer perspective, homeowner perspective, is outsourcing. They'd rather have their time back, and they're willing to pay for good service and good products. And you're seeing that more and more as people are in their houses. They're realizing that, when I first started this in 7 and 8, people had a renter's mentality of, well, I've got a mortgage payment, I shouldn't have to keep up with everything. And it has changed over the course that I've watched here, especially in the Metro Atlanta market. It has changed where people are actually staying in place longer and realizing that if I'm going to stay here, I want to have some nice stuff. Now, what do? Well, historically, we would ask our friends, ask our neighbors, or maybe we try to do it ourselves. And then you get a referral that way. But then when you realize that there's so many people out there not doing it the right way, there's plenty for all of us to go around and do this work and help people in their houses.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You mentioned knowing your numbers. That's something that I love, numbers, spreadsheets, and really trying to crunch and figure out where we're at, where we're going. How would you advise, the newer remodelers on the scene? How do you set goals, and how do you kind of keep track of your numbers so that you know that you're on pace, but you're not overextending yourself in certain areas? Your expenses aren't growing too far out of control, or maybe you're not hiring quick enough, or you're hiring too quickly. How do you find that balance by looking at your balance sheets and spreadsheets?
Yeah, so do as I say, not as I did, of course, because I was getting my teeth kicked in a number of times by not knowing my numbers. The thing I would tell somebody, if you're working out of your basement or you're working out of your house, you have an office expense, you have overhead, and you better go figure out an overhead number that makes some sense before you start plopping in numbers. Because if you're just going to go charge yourself out at, let's say you're charging yourself out at $30 an hour, you're not making money doing that. And if you're thinking, if you're doing a larger remodel and your sub says, I'm going to do it for $1,000 and you charge somebody $1,200, you're not going to make it because you're like, hey, that's a 20%. Well, actually, if you do the math correctly, that's less than even a 20% markup. And then after you get done paying all your overhead expenses, you're probably not even putting 10 in your pocket if you're lucky. So even when you're small, you need to watch it. And then as you grow, you need to be really stingy with that money. And of course, one of the areas when I first started the biz, I had a good amount of cash set aside. I had $300,000, but I burned through all of it. Yeah. And I was at the end. I was like, oh, it's making payroll, never missed payroll in 16 years. But yeah, I made a lot of mistakes there. Spending it on marketing, not knowing my numbers, charging less than I should have. And today we've got a pretty good cost structure and able to do well, and that's why we've been able to thrive.
Yeah, totally makes sense. What about? I was thinking about numbers when you were talking about, and some people aren't really thinking about the profits they got built. And I mean, we've got clients that are still using yellow pad and pen to crunch their numbers and keep track of their clients. And I mean, like you have to have a CRM. You got to really know what you're doing. But one of the things that you were talking about was knowing, make sure you have profits built in. I subscribe to the Profit First mentality, a great book. I can't think of the author now, but I'm sure you've probably read it as well, where, there has to be profit built in there. And so if you're working off a yellow pad and pencil, there's no way that you're really accounting for all the expenses in your business, plus the profit. You're just kind of working a job and probably a low paying one at that.
If you're working off, pencil and paper and it's working for you, I would tell you that you're fooling yourself. In today's world, I wouldn't even know what to do if I didn't have a CRM. And I started with a CRM system, and that's, again, not a very expensive one, just something that can keep track of it. But when you look at it today, I mean, literally today was you and I are doing this podcast and talking. I sent out my monthly newsletter with a video in it, and it goes to 18,000 people. And the phones were ringing off the hook before I came in here to talk with you. And that's an easy win, easy market, just to go back to existing customer base and say, hey, we're still here and we can do this stuff. So pencil and paper, word of mouth, referrals, if you just get in this one neighborhood, you're set for life. You're just thinking about it from a small level, and you're not really thinking from a theory of abundance.
Right. Yeah, there's so many parts and pieces to that. I'm glad you bring that up, because there's a concept that I like to call omnipresence, really being everywhere at all times with your brand, with your business. And I think you have that mastered probably more than 99% of the people I talk to. I mean, you mentioned you already had a newsletter go out this morning to 18,000 people. It also contained a video, and I'm sure I can find that video somewhere else too, probably on social media or YouTube or something like that. You're constantly staying in contact with your other contractors and other market partners that refer to you. You're not just assuming that those referrals are just going to come in nonstop, and like there's no two-way relationship there. It's only a one-way. You've got a great website. You've got good optimization in place. You got a absolute massive amount of reviews from a lot of happy customers. So, I mean, you've got that omnipresence mastered. Do you use that word omnipresence, or are you just kind of looking at like, I just need to do everything and I don't care what the word is, but this is how we build our brand?
Well, actually, I just wrote that down. So I didn't use that word, but I'm going to. Yeah,
Excellent.
I think you've got to have that again, regardless of your size. Especially if you're serving one small zip code or community outside of a major metro, and you say, hey, that's where I want to be and that's where I got to be. Great, but then you better be the one in there. You better have your trucks easily identified, yard signs out there. You always have business cards, even for everybody in your company. It's amazing how even a physical business card will live and exist on people's refrigerators for years. We've got brochures. Then the digital side of things, where are your people living? That's a big part of what I have studied hard was, who are my target customers? Who are my avatars? And then where do they live? Where do they work? What do they do? What do they like to do? And that's what we really go after. So we'll sponsor events like Children's Healthcare of Atlanta as a golfing event. So, but I also want to know that I can work with golfers. We also have a huge tennis association here in Atlanta. So we do benefits and charities for tennis associations because we know that that's where my target market is living and playing.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned one thing I want to go back to just for a second. You're knowing your customer avatar. I was just working on a video yesterday regarding that exact same thing. If you really are, especially if you're starting out, you really got to know what market you're serving instead of trying to serve everybody. You've really got to figure out who is your ideal customer avatar. Who are they? What are their demographics, ages, where they live, how much money do they make, who's typically making that decision, and for a remodeling job, a new kitchen, whatever it may be. What is your brand message going to be? Do you have a slogan? And really kind of trying to wrap all that together so that you're really focused on who you are and who you're going to serve. Did you think about that stuff early on, or is that stuff that just keeps coming to you little by little over time?
No, I think one of the things I'm pretty proud of is that I did a lot of work around the Trusted Toolbox. I actually worked with a friend of mine, family friend, but also had a lot of heavy hitting power when it comes to branding. So my brand, I would love to tell you this is my idea. If you would have seen my idea, it wouldn't even be close. And I've seen some of these potential logos out there, in some of the Facebook groups, and I chuckled because that's exactly what I was going to do. I was going to overcomplicate the brand image. And when you go look at the Trusted Toolbox, it's a very simple, easy to identify mark. So the brand, and then figuring out how that brand is going to attract our avatar. And so what I figured out was at the time in 2008, it was a 35 to 50-year-old female, busy family of four in a suburban house that had a lot of cul-de-sacs, probably had a swim and tennis. That's all one word here in Atlanta. She didn't drive an SUV. She didn't drive a minivan. She drove an SUV because minivans are so passé. Her family was not around, so her friend group was driven by her kids. Many of the people here in the Atlanta metro market were transient, meaning they moved here from somewhere else. They weren't second, third, fourth generation family. So yeah, we nailed that one down, and I really went after it because you can spend money all day long, and trust me, I did. But what am I doing? I'm spending money to try to attract that next 20%.
Right. Thinking ahead, being a visionary.
Yeah, trying. Yeah. So it's evolved over time. I joked with you, I think, is that if you want to date yourself and make yourself feel old, just use technology as a barometer. When I first started in 2008, I was told I needed to take a full page ad out of the yellow pages. And I didn't do it, and it paid off, but what I did do, I spent a lot of money on money mailers and val packs and print magazines, the little flyers that went out, and that didn't really do much. And of course, I was learning all this in the recession as well. And then you look at it today, digital all day long, but I'm seeing a little more print come back. So you just got to be out there, keep looking at it and seeing where are these leads actually coming from. But who is your target market is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and what you mentioned too is tracking, really knowing what return on investment you're getting from your marketing, but not just your marketing in general, but every single marketing channel. You know, do you have a tracking number on your Valpak? Do you have a different tracking number in that neighborhood magazine, a different number on your website? So, you know, your Yelp ad, your Facebook ad, your Google ad, and really trying to figure out which marketing channels work the best, which ones are working and working extremely well, throw more money at that. The ones that aren't working, then set those aside, because you've got to be on top of that and on constantly tweaking, A/B split testing, and really figuring out what's working instead of blindly throwing money, like throwing spaghetti at a cabinet and seeing if it sticks and is ready to eat. It seems like you really focus on that. Really, it's part of knowing your numbers, right? That tracking.
That's part of knowing your numbers for sure, about what's working and what's not. And I mean, you just rattle off a bunch of stuff. And of course, I don't do 10% of that, but I do a lot of it. I do track every single number that's out there. We do use CallRail to see where the leads are coming from and to track how the leads are, how our marketing is performing. But again, back to knowing your customer, I'll give you a great anecdote. One of the guys that I've met through NARI, one of his qualifying questions to a customer before he even comes to their house is, do you know what you want to do with this space? And do you know what you want? And they're like, oh, exactly. I know exactly what I want. He's like, I don't think I'll be a good fit for you then. And he qualifies them out because he wants to be able to come in there and design that space and help them solve a problem and enjoy a space. And he's found that that's been his best target market, and he does really well with it.
Wow, that's an interesting take on it. You would have thought that affirmative answer would have been like, great, okay, let's work together. But it was just the opposite. Like, you're already set in your ways on what you want, and I'm not going to be able to bring any vision or contribute to helping you design this space. So we're probably not going to be a good fit together. That's pretty interesting.
I know, it's been huge. Yeah.
Wow. You mentioned the yellow pages way back in the day. I used to have a buddy that sold for the yellow pages, and he said it was the easiest job ever. You know, you just say, hey, your competitor's here, and so you need to be here. $1,000, cha-ching, cha-ching. And said it was the easiest selling he did. And you were one of those that said, no, I'm just not going to follow the herd off the cliff.
Yeah. And I would tell you, it was wild because I had a lot of people say, no, you've got to do it. And I was like, no, I don't think so. So yeah. One of the few things, it sounds like I'm bragging about that, but trust me, there's plenty of things I've really screwed up.
Yeah, absolutely. You're also an author, Chris. You have a book, From the Zoo to the Wild. Tell me about the book and what inspired you to become a world famous author.
Right. I always joke that I was going to, when I do this, I'll write a book. And so what I did was I started just jotting things down in the morning. I'd wake up and just start puking on in my Word document and pull it up and just start putting things in there. And I had a lot of jumbled thoughts, but I felt like I had a story that was worth getting out to people who are thinking about making that leap from the zoo of the corporate concrete jungle, if you will, and then jumping out into the wild world of the real jungle, which is running your own business. And the things I learned about being a white collar person, getting into the blue collar business and doing what I'm doing, working with the trades and with handyman and remodeling. So I talk a lot about that. It's a pretty quick read, I think, for a lot of people. That's what I've heard, because I wanted it to be nuggets and good information. And I dropped some nuggets in there, but it's easily digestible. This is not going to be the book that transformed your life. I know that, but I do know it's been an arsenal that's been great for a number of people. The feedback I've received has been very positive, that they pick it up. It's an easy read. They get it. They understand the struggles I went through and saw some things that they could do better themselves. So that's been great. So it's out there on Amazon. And of course you told me I got to get the Audible book of it. So I'm going to work on that. That's a 2025 goal.
There we go. I want to hear your sweet, soothing voice putting me to sleep at night as I listen to your book.
This book will do it. Yep.
Hopefully after a few chapters, not just one, right?
Right. I'm hoping it starts out, keeps you at least engaged for a minute before you fall asleep.
Yeah, great. Well, I love the concept of the book, just kind of giving back as well. You know, you mentioned the philanthropy you're involved in, community events you do, and the fundraisers. I mean, you pay it forward like that, you give enough, you will have good things come back to you. And I think more people can really learn those lessons from you and from others that do the same thing, that just doing the right thing is the right thing to do. And eventually that, not that you're looking for something to come back to you, but by doing that, you're not only helping a lot of people around you, you're helping your community, you're helping people in the remodeling community as well. So I really love to hear about all the things you're doing. It's really amazing.
No, well, thanks. But I would say that it is wild is that when you do volunteer your time and do something you think you're giving, it's amazing how much you get back. I went and spoke at schools and the energy I get off the young people doing that, or just having a chance to talk with people at NARI or in other groups. I've been out there and done a couple speaking events, again, just giving back, but you find out you get so much, which has been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. As we kind of wind down here, Chris, if you had just one or two things to be able to convey to someone in the remodeling industry, whether they're just coming in or whether they're, been established for a few years or even longer, what would be your parting advice for them to help them with their continued growth and success of their own company?
Yeah, I put this in the book too, is that I started out with a functional org chart, but I filled every box. I was the chief marketing officer, chief financial officer, COO, technician, helper, estimator, phone answerer, or CSR. But I did that functional org chart, and that had helped me as I grew, is to figure out what box was I going to go to try to fill next, and is it going to be me or do I need help? And where do I felt like my best resource was? And I would tell you, I always tended towards staying in sales, staying in the front of the company, because sales is king. That's what drives it. I'm pretty good at it, so I did that. But in today's world, I've got a general manager here in Atlanta now, which is a big move for me. It took me about 3 years to pull the trigger on something like that. I've got a general manager in Athens. Underneath them, I've got a sales manager, an office manager, remodeling manager. So we're able to do that as well. And the scaling, and what I learned about myself is that I scaled, is that what worked for me with my band of pirates in the beginning that would come onto my pirate ship and go for the booty, and I put that in the book too. It was easy for me to come in and go, "Arr, you can follow me," and jump through. And then I realized after a while, I had to put my fingers on the keyboard a little bit and start documenting our processes. So today we have a full operations manual and employee handbook, all the stuff that, blah, 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 HR, but you got to have it if you want guys to buy into your culture and come to your company and say, man, it's a great place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned making that org chart. You might, everyone needs to make one. You might put your name in every single box, but that's where you start. And then eventually you start erasing that name and putting a real name in there. But just having that, it gives you a vision, a roadmap of where you're going. If you just kind of waiting for a job to do a job and then wait for the next one and to do that, you're just kind of skipping stones. You're just waiting, just taking one step at a time instead of really looking forward and going, where am I really taking my company? What are my goals and how am I going to get there? And who's going to be a part of the team that gets me there?
Right. Yeah. And it's been a struggle. And, like I said, I wish I could grow more at times. And then there are times where, you got your lofty, your BHAGs, your big, hairy, audacious goals, and you don't hit them. And then you start looking at yourself and saying, well, what's going on? What am I not doing? So that was for me, bringing in a general manager to help me grow even more and be able to do even more with the Trusted Toolbox as a brand and a well-functioning operation. Again, 38 employees, and looking to grow this into other markets as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's going to be that one or two key hires that you've got to get in place sooner rather than later. Some of the other stuff can wait. You can handle the HR maybe a little longer than you really want to deal with, or run the financials at 9:00 at night or on the weekend when you've finally got some free time. But there are some key hires like a general manager, a project manager, something like that you've got to think about getting into place sooner rather than later. Otherwise, you're just going to keep holding your company back, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Hard to do sometimes because it costs money.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned one thing in your book I just want to touch on, the wolf pack versus having a bunch of solitary wolves out there. Cause you just mentioned, having everyone working together, buying in. It sounds like that's something you go into your book as well to really get that buy-in, that everyone's working together collectively on a team and with the same common goal instead of a bunch of solitary wolves out there, just looking to fend for themselves.
Yeah, my guys who are out in the field, I call them, they're my wolf pack. I invite the lone wolves to come into the wolf pack. I'm like, you were on your own. You were doing this probably on your own as a handyman or a small remodeler. And look, if you come and join our wolf pack, you'll be able to get more using the same effort, and you get to benefit from being part of our wolf pack. So that what I have learned is that is big. And for us to build culture, it really had to have training. And I really pride myself in the training that we do. We do it 24 times a year or twice a month. Try to hit bi-weekly with, some, obviously we miss a few holidays in there to help build our culture. So we build it around who we are and what we do. We'll always talk about the culture part, the customer experience piece. Then we'll talk about something that helps them in their operations, like getting paid or how to clock in and clock out. But then we always finish with something technical, talking about how to hang a door better, or how to cut out a door jamb better, how to do drywall repair better, whatever it is that technically can help those artists perfect their craft and do it better. That's where I've seen the biggest lift in the biz, and that's been developing that culture through training.
Yeah, a culture of training, a culture of accountability, a culture of getting better, getting 1% better every single day, just through what you're teaching and what people are learning on their own. But I like that, because in your industry, our industry, it's really about not only the quality craftsmanship but the customer service, combining those, finding that balance, and seeing where you can get better at both of those at all times, every single day throughout the year, and not just accepting the status quo, like, oh, we got our manual, that's it, we're good. That constant training, that continuing education that medical professionals have to go through, but people in the remodeling industry, they don't necessarily think about that. And that's why great organizations like NARI offer all those accreditations and certificates that you can earn through education, through bettering your company, mastering your craft a little more.
Absolutely. If you're not focused on customer service and what your customer facing folks are doing and how they're doing it, you'll be doomed for failure. I think one of the things that we're seeing in our industry is that we used to get away with coming in, maybe 2 or 3 hours late. And we used to get away with maybe not looking as polished as we should, and maybe leaving a mess and doing all that. But anymore today, people are expecting that customer service. And if they don't see it and they don't experience it, they're not coming back to you, and they're probably going to make your life hell. So focus on that customer experience, especially your carpenters, your plumbers, your electricians, any of your tradesmen. And then, of course, anybody answering your phone, got to be focused on delivering that great customer experience, or you'll be doomed.
Yeah. In our company, we call it the white glove concierge experience. We really want to offer the absolute top-notch customer experience. And I see that in the remodeling industry too. The guys that come in with the booties on, they say hi to your dog, and they don't look at your dog like they want to kick it out of the way, like just
right.
Being a good person, taking care of that home better than you would take care of your own home, and respecting people's space, respecting their time, like you said, not showing up late, just all these little things that we sometimes take for granted, but you got to realize there's another person on the other side of that equation.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's the big part about how that customer service, and we'll talk about that. I've been part of a number of studies here in Atlanta, and another small little nugget is you always want everybody who goes into that home and the home services business, whatever you do, you always want your guys giving them the plan that they're going to go through. Because if you don't tell the customer what to expect, they don't know what to expect. And then if they don't have an expectation set, how can you meet and exceed that if you haven't set that up? So we talk about that a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Setting the right expectations, setting them, period, and then making sure they're the right expectations that are aligned with what the customer thinks is going to happen. Yeah, it makes sense.
Right.
Totally. So, Chris, where's your company going? What are the goals for the Trusted Toolbox going forward here, for your own podcast that you do, for maybe another book? What are your goals here coming up in 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, you mentioned the podcast that's called the Small Business Safari, where we bring other business owners on to try to help people either escape the zoo and start their business or try to scale their business. And so we try to provide that advice. Been doing it for 3 years with a co-host, so it's more like a radio show than it is a podcast where it's one-on-one. I feel like we've got some pretty good mojo going there, and I've been able to impact people because I find out about it. So that's been great. But my goals for 25 are to see growth. I think 25 for remodelers. The first 3 months may be a little on the slow side, but I think everything that they're all saying right now in the economy and where we're going is that 25 should be a good year for all of us doing it. So I'm looking for a big year in Atlanta, looking to get Athens up on its feet doing this, and then look to expand the concept of the Trusted Toolbox, not necessarily franchising, but I see the trend happening in home services where larger companies are consolidating services in the major metros, whether they be private equity firms or other people. And I want to be the handyman concept for a roll-up like that, where I think I could offer that as part of their service, their home service wheel, if you will, that you can provide to a customer. Well, it can just be that notch because it hasn't been done at scale like I've done it. I've been scouring the U.S. trying to find somebody who's as big as us, and I just haven't found them yet.
Right. Sounds like some great goals. Another laid back, slow year for you.
Right. Yeah. Don't worry now. I'll get my vacations in, but that's the benefit of being an empty nester. But yes, I got some lofty goals again, so we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Well, definitely wishing you the best in your goals for next year and everything you do, Chris. You're an amazing person. I'm privileged to be friends with you. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today as well.
All right. I really enjoyed it too. Yeah. Look forward to, obviously we'll keep talking after this. So hopefully this podcast helped everybody out, and let's keep rocking it.
All right. That sounds great. Thanks a lot, Chris. Thanks everyone for joining us today on the Home Remodeler Toolbox with Chris Lalomia of the Trusted Toolbox in Atlanta, Georgia. Also check out his podcast. What was it, Chris? The Small Business Safari?
The Small Business Safari. That's right.
Yep. There we go. So check that out as well. Chris has always got some great guests on his podcast, lots of business owners and industry professionals. Thanks everyone again for tuning in, turning on, and we'll see you on the next podcast episode here at the Home Remodeler Toolbox. Take care, everyone.
Hey, if you liked our podcast, join the remodeling community and hit subscribe. We would love to hear from you, so be sure to share your thoughts on what you might want to hear about in future episodes. If you're ready to take your business to the next level, visit homeremodellerseo.com and check out our services that can help build your foundation for success. Thanks for tuning in to the Home Remodeler Toolbox Podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode.